So I think that made me fall more in love with the game in a way, and having the ability to realize like, wow, like I am very passionate about this. I'm going to recover from this injury and try and come back stronger. I think that it was something unexpected, like an unexpected positive that came out of an unfortunate situation.
Welcome to Rinkside Rundown, the podcast that puts you right in the heart of women's hockey. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and each week I'm on a mission to showcase the incredible women who are lighting up the ice across the globe. Get ready as I chat with rising stars, seasoned pros, and all the game changers making waves in the world of women's hockey that you won't find anywhere else. So, let's dive into the exciting world of women's hockey and make sure to click that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode. Hello and welcome back to Rinkside Rundown, the podcast that brings you inside the world of women's hockey, one story at a time. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and today's guest is a goaltender whose journey through adversity, elite competition, and international experience has led her to the PWHL. Kassidy Sauvé of the Toronto Sceptres has carved out a remarkable path from her days with the Whitby Junior Wolves and a gold medal with Team Canada to standout seasons at Ohio State and Clarkson and a professional career that spanned multiple leagues and multiple countries. Today, we'll dive into the highs, the hurdles, and what it means for her to return home and compete at the highest level in the PWHL. Kassidy, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastically. Even better now that we finally get a chance to chat. I'm really excited about this. Learn a lot more about you. Share your story. You ready to dive in?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's do it. Let's start at the beginning. Let's rewind the clock. Let's talk about your roots. Growing up in Whitby, what were those early days for you like when it comes to hockey?
Yeah, my family moved to Whitby when I was, I think, maybe 12 or 13. Before that, we were living in Montreal. Kind of started with a more serious minor hockey, I guess you would say, in Whitby. So I played boys for a couple of years there. And then as I got older, I switched over to the girls' side. The former PWHL, I think it's the OWHL now. Yeah, U22 Elite. So ended up switching. I played for Durham West for a season, and then I played for Whitby in my final season before going to college.
Now, when it comes to goaltending, what's your story when it comes to how you found yourself strapping on those pads and getting into the net? Was it that there was no one else that wanted to play that position? Was it just, they just needed someone to shoot on and you were like, fine, I'll do it? Or was it something that, growing up, especially early on, you were sitting there like, hey, I love hockey and I've really kind of gravitated naturally towards that position?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of my brother needing someone to shoot on in the driveway, a little bit of that, and then I also, and this is so bad because I'm the complete opposite of this now, but I noticed when I was younger that the goalies didn't have to skate. So I was like, like I can stand there. I still get to play hockey, but I don't have to do any of like the skating. So that was a little bit of it as well, which I'm the complete opposite now. I don't mind the skating and stuff, but at the time I was like, oh, this is a good way to go about playing hockey without having to do the hard work part.
Yeah, it's a good spot to be in. Hey, listen, I totally get that. That's part of the reason why I was always defense. I was like, hey, listen, I'll just stay in front of the net and I'll block every shot. I'll sacrifice the body, but I'm not skating up and down the ice because I am not a good
Yeah.
skater. That's fantastic. What were some of those, obviously mentioning your family, what were some of those early memories like being able to, play this sport of hockey with your brother?
It was awesome. We were so lucky. When we lived in Montreal, they combined age groups in the community we lived in. So every other year, my brother and I actually got to play together. So, I mean, that was super nice for my mom and dad. Like travel wise and stuff, every other year it would be a little bit smoother for them. But that was kind of a huge reason for me why I enjoyed it so much was we got to spend a lot of time at the rink together. And then we both ended up playing for Whitby in different age groups when we moved to Ontario. So like we were still at the rink around the same time and stuff and had very similar friends and friend groups. So I think that was a huge part of why I liked it so much was I got to hang out with my big brother. So
And what was that move or adjustment like for you going from Montreal to Whitby?
it wasn't too bad. I think I was young enough that it wasn't like that much of like a life-changing experience for me. Like I think, my brother and I were growing up, we were so close, so we were obviously moving together and had each other. So I think for us wasn't terrible to have to move at that age. But when we moved here, and I feel like when you play on a hockey team, you have automatic friendship, which is nice. So it was kind of a smooth transition for us.
Nice. Yeah. And when we talk about your junior career, much like the rest of your hockey career, it's rather impressive. You played with the Toronto Arrows as well as I mentioned, the Whitby Junior Wolves as well. When you look back on those years, those teams, what did that mean for you and your own growth as a goaltender?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough that when I was still playing boys hockey, I signed as a alternate with the Toronto Arrows, and I was pretty young at that point, but it was nice to just get that exposure to women's hockey. Um, and then I went to Durham West in grade 11, was there for a year, and actually really struggled with the women's game for the first maybe 3 months. Like I don't know, I just had such a hard time with it. I think the way girls play, there's a lot more like thought process, especially at that age. Guys come in and they just shoot it as hard as they can, and girls, it's a lot more like there's thoughts that go into it. So I kind of struggled to adjust to the changes of the game, but then once I got a hang of it, it was a lot better. And in my last year in Whitby, it was a lot of fun, and I knew a lot of the girls on that team already, so it was really nice to go to that team, play for my hometown in my last year of minor hockey.
Okay, I want to know as well, especially being a goaltender, because goaltenders, I mean, it's kind of cliche to say, but you're all kind of like a little bit different than the rest of the players on the ice. Um, but one of those things too is that, like you mentioned, there was a bit of a struggle to adjust.
Hmm.
How did you, how did you like you perseverance through that? You were able to persevere through that, but what was that process like for you? And were there ever those moments when you're like, like I'm not gonna, it's just not sticking with me. I'm just not gonna do it. Or was it always like, it doesn't matter how hard this is. I see this as what I want to do.
Yeah, for the first couple months, my dad would drop me off at the rink and pick me up after. And I think probably for at least the first month, every time I got in the car, I would say, "Oh, I want to go back to boys hockey." And it wasn't because girls hockey wasn't fun, but it's because I wasn't excelling at it. And I had never been in that position where I had kind of struggled to make saves. So I think for the first little bit, my attitude was maybe a little off. And not that I thought I was better than the women's game by any means, but I was struggling with it. So it was like, well, if I was doing well in boys hockey, I should just go back to that. But then my parents kind of found a local goalie coach that worked more with female goalies. Um, and I ended up training with him kind of for quite a while actually. I trained with him for years, but started training with him and he helped me adjust my game and be less athletic and more controlled, and I think that started to really help me. So for a while it was for sure frustrating, but once I got a hang of the game and realized that I didn't just have to slide over and make a big one-timer save, like I had to have more control than that. Once I got a hang of that, things kind of smoothed out a little bit for me.
Okay, before we get into some of the other accomplishments, and then obviously your NCAA career and to current Kassidy times, we do have to talk about a unique, very interesting family connection you have.
Yeah.
with one of the greats. I know you've talked about. I know you've talked about this 1,000 times. So I appreciate you humoring me here. But why don't you share, your connection to one of hockey's greatest?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually didn't know about this until like I think after I was done with college. Maybe late in my college career I found out, but I was sitting with my grandma one day and we were talking hockey and she's like, "Oh yeah, you're related to George Vesna. That's maybe why you ended up being a goalie. Like it runs in the family." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And then she kind of explained like the bloodline. So my grandma's maiden name is Vesna, and she kind of explained to me that there's a connection in the family. So I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, something I would have liked to know sooner, but I guess I was informed of that pretty late in my hockey career. But yeah, it is really cool.
Okay, now is there any more or maybe less pressure, knowing that that hockey greatness runs in your family when it comes to your own approach to the game?
Uh, I would say less. I mean, I don't I don't take it as like a pressure thing. I do think it's really cool, but it does like make me think like, oh, like maybe that actually is why I became a goalie and not because I didn't like skating, you know? Like there's actually a maybe a better reason for it than being lazy. So,
Yeah, let's go with that answer. Let's
yeah.
go with that. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
new answer to that question. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so when we talk about your growth as a goaltender, one of those big milestones, I'm sure for you, was before going to college and having the opportunity to represent Canada internationally. Maybe
Mhm.
just talk about what that experience was like for you, and maybe, especially as someone who, like you've shared, had struggled to kind of find your game within this game, what that
Yeah.
meant for your confidence in goal.
Yeah, it definitely helps with the confidence. My first year of U18s, I made there's the initial camp and then there's the series against the US and I made that team. And then I started my first year of junior girls and really struggled and didn't make the world's team my first year that I was eligible to do so, which was tough, but kind of once I started to settle into the women's game a little bit more, and I was presented with that opportunity again, it just felt right that time. And I was super lucky to go overseas. Our tournament was in Budapest, which was really cool. It was kind of my first time like doing a big trip for hockey. And we had a really good group, like really good people. We had a very close team. But it was a really cool experience that I'll remember forever. And winning gold at the end of it was pretty special as well. So,
Yeah, that's a nice way to wrap things up, to be
yeah,
able to take home the gold medal. And
yeah.
maybe, thinking back to that, what were some of those for the rest of us who haven't had that opportunity, to travel with, doing whatever it is that we love the most? What were some of those favorite memories that you had during that time? Not necessarily, obviously, like winning gold would likely be at the top of that list, but just like maybe some of those things off the ice that just kind of like made you sit back and say, like, yeah, this is the right spot for me.
I think the main thing for me was my family was able to come, which was pretty cool. So my mom and my dad were there, as well as my grandma and my aunts. So that was really cool that we got to experience that together. And then, kind of outside of hockey, with the team, we stayed at this hotel with like a huge water park. And I like to this day remember when they let us go to the water park, we were so excited. And then just like hanging out, I think we did like karaoke in our rooms because we were just like hanging out as a team. So stuff like that is, obviously the playing portion is super important, but building those memories with other elite athletes is exceptional as well. So,
Well, especially as you look at continuing your career and making that jump to the next level, being able to build the relationships away from the ice or off the ice is equally as important, as you said. And when we think about your transition into your NCAA or your collegiate career, we start with Ohio State. You're wearing your Ohio State, you're repping your Ohio State.
Yeah.
So yeah, go Buckeyes.
Yeah.
What went into your, this is going to seem like a silly question because it's a great program, but I do want to know for you personally, what went into your decision to choose Ohio State?
Yeah, it's actually crazy where the program is now because when I committed to going there, like the team was good, but the team had a lot of work to do. Um, it was, like a 500 team, a lot of talented players, but a lot of progress needed to be made within the program. And it's actually kind of crazy. When I was going through the recruiting process, I told my parents I didn't want to go to a big school. That was like the first thing when we were sitting down talking about schools. I was like, no big schools. I want to go to a small school. And then Ohio State reached out, and the coach at the time sent me like a letter in the mail. It was just like, we'd love to have you on a visit. And then like chatted with him on the phone a couple times. And then I was like, okay, fine, I'll go visit. And the second I walked like onto the campus, I turned to my parents and I was like, I want to play here. So I knew right away as soon as I saw the campus, and my parents were like, but there's like 50,000 students, like that's a big school. So it was kind of funny, but I guess at the end of the day, like the big school thing didn't really faze me that much once I was there. You're with your small group of 25 female hockey players, and you hang out together all the time, so you can make it a pretty small environment within a big place. But yeah, when I went there, like I think that was like the year that my class went in was kind of like the TSN turning point for the program, which was kind of cool to be a part of that because there was a lot of ups and downs in the program before that, like a good year, a bad year. But kind of from that point on, the team got better every year and started to get top end recruits. So it was really cool to be a part of that and kind of changing the culture of a program.
Yeah, maybe that could you talk a little bit more about that? Because obviously, when you go to a program and you're not necessarily, like you said, not necessarily having the consistency in terms of winning, it can be really discouraging. And yet you stuck with it, and then you saw the program turn. As you mentioned,
Yeah.
a great reference to TSN. I like that. But you saw that turning point, and what did that do for you and for the team when you started to see that turning point, as we've said, and being able to recruit top talent? What did that do for the morale in that space, and then for the fans and for the game itself?
Yeah, I think it really shifted the culture within the team. We always had it like my 4 years that I was there, we always had a great group. Like that was never a question. But I think we became a more serious group when we started to realize that it was the little details and like the little habits off the ice that were going to make our team better. And I think when the coach that's still there now, Nadine Mazeral, came in, it was a pretty strict, like, we're going to do it this way, but we were kind of all ready for that because we wanted to be good. We didn't want to just be like the school that people went to have fun and to party. Like, we wanted to be one of the top programs, and that all kind of started to shift in and around when she came in. So,
Nice. And when you think about maybe some of that, obviously you had a really, really impressive career. Again, one of the common themes within this conversation is that you're really good at hockey,
thank
despite
you.
maybe some of those initial struggles that you had in your early days. But you continue every step. You continue to improve and continue to win awards and continue to get those accolades, including off the ice, like, oh, no big deal, but the Dean's List. So that's impressive in and of itself as well. So, I mean, let's pause for a second and say congratulations with all of
Thank
the
you.
impressive collegiate career you had. What maybe during your time, I know you've highlighted some of those, the broader program success as being one of the things that you really enjoyed about being there, but maybe some of those other smaller things that during your time at Ohio State really helped continue to define you as an individual, as a person away from the ice, not just the great success that you had on the ice.
Yeah, I think the one big positive of being at such a large school is there's a lot of academic variety. When I applied to get into Ohio State, I started with architecture. And then I very quickly realized that that was not going to balance well with also playing hockey because the
Wait,
time
uh,
demand.
what went into the decision? What was it about architecture that you were like, you know what, this is the one for me? Has that always been something you were interested in?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I really like um more so on like the interior design real estate side of it now, but I always thought that that was super fascinating and I was like it would be so cool if I could just like build my own structures was kind of so I started with that. I got accepted into the architecture program. And then before I got there, like I got a bunch of emails that were like, this is what you need to do for the architecture program. And I was like, God, that's going to be really hard to play hockey in my first year in college and do architecture at the same time. So I switched to design, um, like interior and graphic design, and did that for half a semester or for one semester. And then was like, I really, really liked it. But the dean of that program was like, yeah, you're gonna have to pick, like it's either design or hockey. And I was like, okay, see ya. Like, pretty quick decision for me. So that yeah, so but I liked it, but I was like, oh, I feel like I could be doing something that's like so much more broad and gives me so much more, like so many more options when I'm done playing. So I ended up switching to sport management for my second semester of my freshman year and then went all the way through with that. But I think the perk of being at such a big school is like I made three changes in career choices in my first like 6 months there. And there's so many options and so much variety that you end up finishing everything. Like just like I think I was done all my courses before my senior semester. So um my final senior semester. So it kind of, like it worked out and you have so many options and summer school and all that. So I think that makes it easier when you have a variety to choose from.
Yeah, and I maybe this is kind of a bit of a segue into what I want to talk about a little bit next here as well, because as a in your during your collegiate career, it isn't just like you said, it isn't just about hockey. But for you in particular, you actually went through you had a season-ending injury during your collegiate career,
Yeah.
and so especially being an athlete where, as you mentioned, and it's obvious that hockey is a huge priority for you and a huge focus, and just being an athlete, you have that mindset, you just got to get out there on the ice. Having an injury, especially as severe as you did, how did you overcome it, and especially the mental hurdles of not being able to be on the ice with your friends, with your teammates, and trying to continue driving that program forward?
Yeah. I think at first, obviously, you have a hard time because your lifestyle sort of changes, like you're at the rink and everything, but you're doing rehab or treatment instead of going on the ice with your teammates. So you miss out on like those on ice memories and spending time with your teammates on the ice. But I do think I was super fortunate to be at such a big school with so many resources. I had surgery on campus. Like I was in the football facility on an underwater treadmill, I think like 6 weeks post-op. So the resources that a school like that has really sets you up for success. And as hard as it was at the same time to not be playing, I think in my life I had never had an opportunity to miss hockey. Like in the summer you miss it, but you're distracted with other things. You play soccer, like you do something in the summer to stay active. But I had never had an opportunity to like miss hockey in the sense that it wasn't my choice to not be doing it. Um, so I think that made me fall more in love with the game in a way. And having the ability to realize like, wow, like I am very passionate about this. I'm going to recover from this injury and try and come back stronger. I think that it was something unexpected, like an unexpected positive that came out of an unfortunate situation.
It's always great when you can find some sort of silver lining to something that in the moment you're like, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
And yet you're able to still find that silver lining. So that's good. Um, obviously, I'd be remiss if we didn't touch on your year at Clarkson before finishing wrapping up your collegiate career. What was it like for you? I mean, first of all, what made Clarkson the right next step for you? But then, what did you learn about that transition, about the new program, and about yourself through that transition, especially going into your fifth year?
I think the transition itself, I just wanted a different experience. I mean, I was kind of gifted this, I guess due to injury, I was gifted this fifth year. I was done my undergrad at Ohio State. Um, and I just thought it was a good opportunity for me to have a different experience. And while I did like genuinely consider staying at Ohio State, in my mind, I still wanted to play hockey, and I knew that I could do my MBA at Clarkson in 1 year versus at Ohio State. It was a 2 year program, so I would have been able to play for 1 year, but then for year two, I would have been in Ohio and not on a team essentially. It just made it a little bit easier to have that 1 year program because then I'm finishing hockey and finishing my degree at the same time. It was definitely a very different experience. I think at the time Clarkson had like 3,500 students. I don't know where they're at now, but you go from one of the biggest state schools to a small upstate New York school. But I really did enjoy it. At Ohio State, while you have like so many resources and you get so much clothing and like you get like the big league experience, but then you go to Clarkson and you get like the people on the streets wishing you good luck in your game on Friday. Because it's more of like a small town, supporting the two Division I teams, the men's and women's hockey teams. So it was cool to get those two very polar opposite experiences.
Well, and to kind of bring it all the way back to the beginning of your collegiate career, where you went into that thinking you were going to start at a small school, you ended there. So it doesn't matter how you got there; it just matters
Yeah.
that you did, right? So
Yeah.
it's great that you were still able, like you said, to be able to experience both sides of that of
Mhm.
the sport, right? That's good.
Yeah.
When we look now at the next chapter of your life, the professional, if you will, the professional chapter, chapter part one, um, you turned pro after college. You went to the PWHPA, and then as well with the Buffalo Buttes. What were
Yeah.
those, thinking back to those, and we're going to get into the PWHL, and especially for someone like yourself who has this experience, the first pro experience, and then was able to see the PWHL grow in its first year from the outside.
Yeah.
What did it mean for you to just be involved in professional hockey at a time when, let's be honest, like that really didn't seem like a likely career path for you? Or
Yeah, for
for
sure. I mean,
the collective you, not specifically just you, of course.
yeah, for sure. If you look back to like I graduated in 2019 and where professional women's hockey was at that time versus now, it's like pretty crazy when you think about it. Like I came out of college and I think maybe a month or two after I graduated, the CWHL folded. Um, so there was like a lot of like, I wonder what I'm gonna do, but going into the PWHPA was a lot of fun. I actually ended up staying stateside and was able to play in the Boston region for my first year. So that was cool because I got to meet new people. A lot of the American players were out that way. So I got to meet some new people, which was nice. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, obviously it's not an ideal situation to not have an actual league at the time to play in, but it was a lot of fun to be training with some of the best players. And, also I was working in Boston, like the Boston area. So kind of being able to get a whole new experience after college. It was a cool experience to do that. And I enjoyed it.
And what did you like when we think about your career? was there ever a moment during, especially during that period of time when there was just so much uncertainty as you've shared? Um, there were like these glimmers of hope and then they were taken away. Was there ever a moment when you said, you know what, let's just focus on, my post hockey career, and just kind of close that chapter? Or was that door always, or that book, so to speak, always open for you?
Yeah, I think it's been still open. Always been open. I feel like people that stop playing hockey talk about how they get this feeling that they just know it's right, that they don't want to play anymore, that they're ready for the next chapter. And I haven't had that feeling yet where I'm like, oh, I'm so done with this. Like, I want to do something else. So I'm just, yeah, I mean, just kind of kept going with it and um, kind of lean into it and see what happens. Obviously, then that took me to Buffalo, and that was, well, while it was like a cool experience to play in a league, obviously I ended up getting injured there, so that was a bit tough as well. But yeah, I just think that maybe with all the injuries, it's like extra cat lives, you know? I'm gonna keep playing until I feel like I've fulfilled what I've wanted to do. So
Well, and you mentioned earlier about the fact that, in during your collegiate career when you were injured, it really like further emphasized, that was part of the silver lining to you being injured, was that it kind of further emphasized that, you just have a huge passion for hockey and you're just not ready to let it go. So it's not surprising to hear that you were like, hey, listen, like, yeah, it sucks. It's definitely sucks that these leagues folded, but it's not going to stop me from pursuing what I
yeah.
love. And you pursued that overseas. So, you spent time first in Finland and then in Sweden. What was obviously that was the furthest you've ever been away from home playing the sport you love. So maybe we'll
Yeah.
start there. What was that like moving to? You had some experience playing internationally with Team Canada, but that was a little bit different. That was a tournament. You're not necessarily moving there. What was that experience like for you, and how did you find that adjustment now to European hockey, European life?
I think it was the first because I went to Finland twice. The first time I went there was right after I was released from the senior national team roster, leading into the Olympics. Um, and I think the decision for me was that I just wanted to play games and have fun. Um, so I ended up going there for the back half of the season and playoffs. And it was honestly like at that time the best decision I could have made. Um, it was nice to just like have fun with hockey and play. And the league, the Finnish league at the time, had a lot of Finnish national team players and some Swedish players as well. So and then obviously some other European countries top players. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a different experience for sure. The culture in Finland is very different, and I found like it did take a bit of adjusting in that sense just to get used to like for example, if you tell a joke or something, like you don't always get laughs as a response. Like sometimes you just get a blank stare, and I didn't know at first if it was a language barrier or if like maybe I just wasn't funny anymore. So I was like trying to figure that out. Yeah, no, it was really cool, and I made some really good friends over there. So that was a lot of fun, and then came back home, and then yeah, ended up back in Finland last year, and with the same team. They're so awesome for me and super supportive of my hockey career. So I'm super appreciative of them, and the club I played for. But ended up back there, kind of just wanted to get some games in, very similar situation. And yeah, it was another really good experience. The hockey I find, like you play on Olympic ice in Europe. That obviously every time you go back to that takes a bit of adjusting for the first couple practices, but otherwise, like it's very similar. You know, at the end of the day, my job doesn't really change all that much, so I guess that's nice. As long as there's a net and a crease, you can kind of do what you need to do your job. So
And during that experience, or those experiences rather, What did you learn about yourself? Not just as a hockey player, but as you, Cassidy.
I think I learned that I'm very adaptable. Um, if you would have asked me when I was, I don't know, freshly coming out of college, if I wanted to move that far away to play hockey, I probably would have said no. Um, I'm a bit of a homebody, so I think like doing that for me then seemed like a scary concept. But when you really do think about the fact that my job is to move to a different country to play hockey and like experience the world, I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, I would say I'm adaptable. And I kind of like that that's become something that I've been able to do because old me would have been scared to do that.
And so it's really interesting that you say that. So because obviously like that's a huge you can love something, of course, you love hockey, but to challenge yourself to not just do the thing that you love, but to do that in an entirely new like and it isn't just you're moving to from Canada to the US where at least, there's a similar language,
Yeah.
hopefully a similar sense of humor. But you're moving to an entirely different country with a variety of different languages potentially on the same team, but yet you were able to overcome those challenges. And when you think back to it, and we're going to talk about this new chapter of your life moving in just a moment here, but I just kind of want to know, like, how proud are you of yourself to be able to do, because a lot of people would have just said, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I'm too
Yeah.
scared, especially like you said, you're a homebody, and yet you challenge yourself. You said, I want to do this. Like,
Yeah.
how proud are you? How proud of you is yourself? If you get what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I'm very proud of myself for taking on those challenges. Excuse me, and just like taking those opportunities as a chance for me to see the world and to travel and like yeah, a lot of people aren't comfortable with doing that and moving, so far away to play a game, but I do think that it is a really cool experience. And when you are able to do it and you are able to just like embrace the culture that you're joining, like it does start to feel like home.
Well, and you set me up with the perfect segue because now you have returned back to Ontario. You have recently signed with the Toronto Sceptres of the PWHL. Um, First of all, congratulations. Welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, as someone, as I mentioned earlier, who had the opportunity not only to play in a professional league previously, but obviously overseas as well. But now you saw the PWHL from the outside for its first season and a little bit. When you looked at this league, what did it mean to you when you factor in as well your own journey in hockey?
Yeah, I think like coming off of a really fun season in Sweden, it's nice to come home and not be done. Um, like I did have such a good time in Sweden and I loved it, but it is tough sometimes when you're playing that far away, to not be around family all the time. And now to kind of to be a part of the Toronto Scepters, and that's kind of like a hometown team in a sense, just being from the GTA. So over the last couple of years of watching, I went to the New York camp um, last, I guess, November. Um, and that was good. And it was a cool experience. And I was like, oh, wow, like the hockey is really good and exciting. And obviously, then I left and went to Finland, and would catch as many games as I could, to try and watch them based off of the time change. But it was really fun to watch, and I think just being able to be on the ice with those players now is a lot of fun, and a little bit of a full circle moment in a sense to be able to, I started my hockey career out this way, and now I'm back on the ice this out here. So I think that's pretty cool, and I'm very appreciative of the opportunity.
Yeah, I guess it's a great point in that you're now able to play in front of friends and family on a much more regular basis rather than them having to, it's you have to plan out what would be, being able to see you play for a game or two, hopefully a few in a row. But what does that mean, especially, as you've mentioned, you're a homebody, your roots, not just your lineage, but going back to thinking about playing in the in the driveway with your brother. What does it mean to you to now be playing professional hockey in your hometown, essentially?
Yeah, yeah, it's very special, and I do have two young nieces, who can hopefully come and watch the team play. I think that would be really cool for them. They've one's 6 and one's 3.5, so they haven't really had that exposure yet to being able to watch me, whether it's in a practice or a game, in person. So I think it'd be really cool, and I that's like the big thing for me is like the hockey started with my brother, and now he has these two beautiful little girls that hopefully can watch me practice or play in the near future. So I think that's pretty special.
I love that, and it's kind of like it is like a full circle moment for you. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
yeah, it's fantastic. Um, I before we get to the fun rapid fire question segment of the show, I do want to ask a little bit more of when you think about coaching and mentorship, a little bit more targeted towards you, your I guess off ice, but kind of on ice, behind the bench work, specifically with Brown. After you graduated from Clarkson, you then went to Brown as a volunteer goalie coach.
Yeah.
Um, what was that experience like for you? And then maybe what were some of those takeaways from that experience that maybe kind of changed how you approach not only your game, but the understanding from the perspective of a coach?
Yeah. I've been super lucky to be coaching in the off season, for quite some time now. So even when I was in college, I was working with like local goalie coaches back home, and helping them with the younger goalies. So I've been super lucky to be able to do that. And then I was moving to the Boston, uh, Rhode Island area to keep playing hockey, and work, and I saw the posting for the Brown job in a like the volunteer position, and I was like, I might as well apply. Like it would be cool to kind of stay involved with like the college hockey culture. I did that for the one season that I was there, and it was a lot of fun. And I found that when you're actually like watching goalies and paying more attention to the position in that sense, you actually do learn quite a bit yourself about what you need to do on the ice and what changes you need to make as well. So that was really cool. And I had three like awesome goalies to work with, and they were, I like when younger kids, and I guess they weren't that much younger than me, but when college kids are coachable like that makes it a lot of fun. So
And again, I feel like this is a good segue because I want to know from you, growing up, I know that we didn't really talk about it, chronologically, but growing up, it isn't always easy to find those role models or those influences, especially when it comes to women in hockey or women in sports. It's evolving now, which is fantastic, and you're a part of that change, whether it's on ice, whether it's off ice. I want to know from you what it means to be a role model for that next generation, and especially as you mentioned firsthand, having those nieces that are now able to see you play.
yeah, I think being a role model for the next generation is obviously super important. Like I mentioned before, in the summer I coach, and I do coach young boys and young girls, but I do think that for the girls, it's pretty cool for them to see, especially like someone to look up to, and it's exciting for them to have that female role model. And then I do like it. I mean, it's awesome to be able to give back. When I was younger, I think I was one of the lucky ones that actually had a female role model, as a goaltender growing up, in Charlene Labonte. So I think like I was super lucky, but I think if you ask a lot of people in and around my age, they didn't have that female athlete to look up to necessarily. Um, so yeah, so I think I obviously was super lucky with that, but more girls now have the opportunity to have those role models, and I do think that's super important.
Yeah, and especially like I said, especially for you personally, to be able to now be able to play in front of your friends and family and your nieces, that just must
Yeah,
kind of hammer it home a little bit for you, just how important this movement is. So that's fantastic.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, okay, now is the rapid fire questions segment of the show. Now you can take as long as you want. You don't have to answer them in rapid fire unless
Okay.
you want to.
Okay.
But I want to start off with a hard hitting question. Are you ready to take this test?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. What's your go to pregame meal?
Salmon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just salmon? Is there salmon, rice, vegetables, those sorts of
Yeah,
things?
like rice, sweet potatoes, vegetables. Kind of sides don't matter as much, but like salmon is like the yeah,
The go-to. That's fair.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
in contrast, now you get a chance to treat yourself. What is your favorite cheat meal or maybe snack if you're just watching a movie or something like that? What's your go-to?
Uh, gosh, that's a tough one. So I'm gonna take it back to the French roots and say a poutine
Hmm. Hmm.
if it's like a cheap meal. But if it's a snack, I'm on like a mini eggs kick right now.
Well, it's tis the season, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
you can have one and not feel too bad, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I'm glad that you made the distinction that the poutine wasn't your cheat snack, because that would have been that's a
Yeah.
bold choice for a snack right there. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So especially as a goaltender, I feel like you must have pregame rituals, superstitions. But do you and have you always had those?
Used to be very superstitious. And then I found that I would get like overworked, what like in my own head when things didn't go right during the game. I'd be like, but I did everything right beforehand. So now I'm actually like probably one of the most chill, like non-superstitious goalies out there. There's still a few things that I do, but I guess my superstition is to force myself to not have a superstition. So
Well, and it's worked out well for you because you continue to have quite the impressive career. So whatever you're doing, just keep doing that. So that's fantastic.
thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm gonna shift gears here a little bit to some music. So I want to know. We talked about your go-to pregame meal. What is your go-to pump-up song?
I, again, I'm a little bit weird with this one. I don't like music that gets me super fired up. So I listen to like Dermot Kennedy, Noah Kahan. Yeah,
Okay.
like
Okay.
sad music or like slow country.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like I just can't get too excited.
That's fair. That's fair. Totally get that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's about relaxing. It's about getting
yeah,
to a good mindset. I get that. I can feel
yeah.
you on that one. Um, when you think now we're going to kind of go to the rest of the dressing room, who owns, and this you can go wherever your collegiate career, where however you want to kind of answer this one, but who owned throughout your career? Who were some of the people that owned the dressing room music?
Oh boy. Um, in
And what was played?
college,
And what was played? And did you enjoy it? Is most important question.
I'm gonna say actually my new Sceptres teammate, Emma Malte.
Mm.
Um, there was a couple songs that really got her moving, so I would say that that was the room was her dance floor. Um, and then in Sweden, I think it was usually Kaylee Hammers that was our DJ in the room, and there's a good mix of English music, Swedish music. We had a couple days where we played like music from every country, so that was fun. Um, yeah, she was good too. And then so far in Toronto, I haven't figured out who the DJ is, but maybe I'll get back to you on.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. A lot of them are off to Worlds, so that would totally
Yeah.
make sense. Yeah, yeah, not a fair assessment yet. Were there any songs, like especially the European songs, that you were like, oh, I'm so glad that I heard that I was in the locker room for this particular song. This one, I really like this one. Did you add any to your playlists?
Yeah, I did, and I honestly couldn't tell you what the names
Gotcha.
are,
I
but
wasn't gonna
I
ask
did.
that. I was just yeah, just, yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
did I did add a few of them to my playlist,
yeah,
so,
that's fair.
yeah.
Um, I want to know, and I feel like I stole this your a potential answer to this question early on in our conversation. So hopefully there's something else here as well. I'm sure there is. But what's one thing that people don't know about you?
Um, I really like photography.
Okay. Do you have like
Yeah,
a camera? Do you often find yourself out taking photos of stuff?
yeah.
Your subject of choice?
Typically, like, nature. I actually got super lucky. My parents moved, to a lake, 2 summers ago, so I've had the opportunity to get some pretty cool shots, over the last couple summers. But yeah, I think nature is the big thing, and it's very nice, like, again, with the traveling to play hockey, as I do get to bring my camera and, get some pictures while I'm in different countries as well, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's going to be a great like little photo book that you can put together one day of all the
Yeah,
travel that you went through, especially taken by a professional. So that's even better.
yeah.
Um, what's one word your teammates would use to describe you?
Uh, I think competitive. Yeah. I hate losing, but I've gotten a lot better. Like, when I was younger, I was, like, so competitive that it was almost not a good thing, but now I'm competitive, but not a sore loser.
Yeah, it's a healthy competitiveness.
Yeah,
I get that.
yeah.
Okay. What's something that remains on your bucket list?
Um, I think to go to Fiji.
Oh, that was very specific. Okay. Usually it's
Yeah.
travel, but why Fiji?
I mean, it looks beautiful. I mean, honestly, anywhere where there's a beach, I feel like would be pretty cool, like Hawaii, Fiji, just somewhere, the Maldives, like something different, something that's like you have to save a lot of money to do it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It makes it that much more worth it, that's for sure.
yeah.
Um, what's a lesson? This is the last one for you before we close things out. What's a lesson you've learned through your hockey journey that you wish more young players knew?
Uh, I think the big thing for me is that it's not always going to be smooth, like a smooth experience. There's definitely going to be ups and downs. You're going to have injuries. You're going to have tough coaches. You're going to have teammates that you don't necessarily get along with, or you're going to meet your best friend and you're on the same team one day and then all of a sudden you're not. So I think there's a lot of things that can happen throughout your hockey career. But you just kind of have to push through those moments and, find the silver lining. Kind of like what I tried to do when I got injured. Obviously, not an ideal situation, to have surgery and to be put on the sidelines, but you can kind of find a blessing in disguise in those tough moments. And I think it's definitely worth pushing through them. I do think you come out stronger on the other side. So,
Whoa, what a good answer. And a perfect way to wrap this episode of Rinkside Rundown. A huge thank you to Kassidy Sauvé for joining us and sharing her incredible journey from Whitby to the world stage and now back home with the Toronto Sceptres in the PWHL. Kassidy, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, hearing your story. Thank you so much for joining the show and being so open and honestly so inspiring. I'm walking away from this feeling like $1,000,000, and thank you for that.
thank you so much for having me.
And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your hockey fans in your life. Every listen helps us grow and continue spotlighting the voices shaping the future of women's hockey. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time on Rinkside Rundown.